not here, she's in the department. But I think we have a very interesting conference with very interesting and challenging plenary speakers, and with several parallel sessions in more than 50 very interesting themes. And the theme, as you know, of this year or here conference is Pathways to Sustainability, Perspectives from Civil Society, Government and Business. So our idea was to show all together that we can do our best, each of us, but also all together. So welcome again. I'm wishing you a very productive and enjoyable conference. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. There we go. A few years ago in Vancouver, Dave reminded me, we had somebody do a 10-minute yoga session before we started every morning to get our brains and bodies in gear. You know, I think that's something that we should do more often, even though I debated it at the time. I think it's an important thing to do. So yes, I'd like to welcome you all. It's been a great 2 years planning and thinking about getting here. Thank you for opening the doors to your fantastic institution, but also bringing us to this fantastic place. I feel like the silliest man in the world. I'd never heard of this town before. And now it's a place that I definitely want to come back to, and that's a really important thing. So thank you very much. Thank you for your intellectual leadership, for your guidance, for inviting great speakers to frame our conversation. So it's our honour to be here. And, you know, I just remembered as we came up, we've been doing this for 20 years now, Dave. And over 20 years we have, you know, traversed the world and we've brought together great ideas and great people, and it's great to see that we can continue to do this. Some of the things that we try and do differently at this conference, I just want to, you know, get just to make sure that you make the most of these next few days, but also going forward as well. One of the things that we were committed to coming out of COVID is that we can't do things the same. You know, we kind of do a lot still the same, but there are some things that we wanted to do differently. The first thing is that we want to get you out of conference rooms and kind of do some real practical hands-on research experiences. So you'll see on the final day we have a case study that we're going to take everybody out. We have a keynote here in the morning, and then we're going to go out and we're going to engage in some real-world context. So that's a really important thing. So, you know, in-person has to be something different about being in-person. We have a few session types that are a little bit different too. So out of the plenary session today, after the coffee break, we have a thing in the program called the Talking Circle. And what the Talking Circle is every room is one of the themes of the research network. What I ask you to do is go into that room and introduce yourself, say who you are, where you've come from, the kind of research you do, when you're presenting. You know, that's a really wonderful way for you to make those personal connections, those research connections that hopefully tie you together through the days of the conference. The other thing that we do is we are trialing this thing called Finding Common Ground, which is kind of like intellectual speed dating, where what we're going to do is we're going to get you in a room and you sit face to face for a short period of time and you engage in an idea. There'll be people there to help you with that, but that's something else that we are trying to do to think about ways to get you guys to communicate in different forms. One of the things that I'd like to recognise before I go forward is our Emerging Scholar program. Each year we have applications to this program. You know, what's important to us is to have emerging ideas in the front of the room, and so not only will they be chairing your sessions, but they'll be weaving together your ideas in meaningful and purposeful ways. So could our awardees this year please stand up, those who are in the room, the Emerging Scholars, please? Yes, thank you. Don't be shy. We'll give them a round of applause. The other thing is that we are not just a conference. Before I go on to that, one of the other things that we have done coming out of the pandemic is really think about what our online presence is, or what we do with online environments. So you'll tell already that we don't have a printed program. There are environmental reasons why we should never have a printed program again. But there's another reason that I want to tell you about as well, is that what we're trying to do is we're trying to collectively build a time capsule of what this conference is as a resource that you can come back to. So you'll see on the final tab on the conference program, there's the asynchronous online content. So we have about 80 people who have uploaded digital content there. That's part of the conference too. We have decided on asynchronous because live has exclusionary boundaries. Who's live, what time? And so we don't want to do that. But we also encourage you. You all have presenter pages where you can upload content even after the conference is done, whether it's a PowerPoint or anything that helps describe your work. You can still comment after the days of the conference is done. You can add people as your peers in there. So what we're hoping is that that we kind of break the temporal boundaries of what a conference is. And so that's why we are forcing you into this space, and we hope that that you use it productively. The other parts of the research network that I want to talk about is the journal collection. We have a wonderful journal collection, and we're trying to do something a little bit different in the kind of world of scholarly communication. You know, firstly, we want to take seriously the peer review. We love Dave, we love Spence, we love all the people on our board, but we don't want them to be heavy-handed on what is the content that comes out of here. And what we want is for people like you, people in the community, to validate the research that is produced within this space. That's point one. Point two is that we want to give it back to you. So as part of your conference registration, you get access to 20 years of published content, both journals and books. Now, you know, everyone tells you don't cite yourself. It's a very bad thing to do. You know, you can sneak one or two in here and there. But what we can do is collectively help each other by citing each other. And if you like the people that you hear in these rooms, we have, you know, a wealth of content there that I'd like to draw your attention to as well. We also have a wonderful book series which Dave and Spence have published in, and they can tell you a little bit more about that over the next few days. So I'm conscious of the time, but I just want to really welcome you all here. You know, there's really important questions in the world, and there's really important things that we need to do. And I thank you for being engaged and committed to both of those dynamics. So thank you very much.
Okay, hello everyone. Another warm welcome from me. For those of you that I've not yet had the pleasure of meeting, I'm David Humphreys, Professor of Environmental Policy at the Open University in the United Kingdom. The Open University is the biggest university in the world in terms of student numbers, but we don't see any of them on campus because we're a distance learning institution that prepares teaching materials which we then send to students either as print materials through the post or more usually these days online. So welcome to the 20th International Conference on Environmental, Cultural, Economic and Social Sustainability. I just want to offer some preliminary thoughts on this year's special focus on pathways to sustainability, innovation, perspectives from civil society, government and business. But first of all, it's been a real pleasure working on the organisation of this year's conference with our hosts at the University of Aveiro, Dr. Marta Ferreira-Diaz of GovCop, the Research Unit on Governance, Competitiveness and Public Policies here at the University of Aveiro. And many thanks to the Vice Rector, Professor Anna Lilebo, for very generously opening the conference, and not only that, for registering and honouring us with your presence over the next 3 days. Thank you both. And thank you to the organising committee. So this year's special focus foregrounds the connectivity between the main actors in global environmental governance: civil society, NGOs, grassroots groups, local communities, government, the state. What is the state? An essentially contested concept, as we know. Who does the state represent? And business. So the civil society groups can act as a conscience, if you like, as a moral conscience, a rejoinder that reminds us of our responsibilities to the environment and to future generations. This cartoon I commissioned for one of our international environmental policy modules. And it illustrates the idea of intergenerational equity, of fairness between generations. The expression that we see there, "one day all this will be yours," is normally used when parents bequeath to their children the home, the family car, wealth in bank accounts and so on. But we're passing on, as things stand at present, we're passing on to our children, our grandchildren, and those generations yet to be born, a degraded environment, as this illustrates. So there's a temporal separation here of cause and effect. Our actions will have consequences for tomorrow, which we probably won't see. So how can we discharge our responsibilities for our descendants through effective planetary stewardship that counters unsustainable trends such as rampant urbanisation, industrial agriculture, the burning of fossil fuels and consumer cultures? So this is something that I'm sure we'll be considering in the days ahead. Here is an environmental demonstrator. There's no wealth on a dead planet. So how should we conceive of wealth? This is the iceberg theory of wealth. And the tip of the iceberg, what we normally think of as the economy, GDP, economic growth, the production of goods and services, is literally just the tip of the iceberg. And what's beneath the water level, so to speak, what is unseen, is the public domain, the public realm, the common good. Okay, voluntary organisations, forests, neighbourhoods, friendships. Okay, organisations such as this, Common Ground, and this conference is part of the wealth of society, but it doesn't really feature in global domestic product. So this is a picture that I took at an Extinction Rebellion demonstration in London. In April 2019, and that slogan at the top, "Rebel for Life." I love the ambiguity of that slogan, because it's both a noun, to be a rebel throughout your life, and it's also a verb, to rebel, to resist on behalf of life. And at the bottom, we are nature protecting itself. Humans, we're not separate from nature, as we know. We're an integral part of it. Extinction Rebellion, I would say, is one of the great progressive movements of our time. It brings to... I did a talk at one of their rallies in central London, which I started off by saying, what will be the history of the 21st century? Okay, of the many challenges that we face this century, none is as urgent as planetary heating. It's the defining public welfare challenge of our age. And how well we deal with it will be the history of the 21st century. We won't write that history. Very few of us will be alive at the end of this century. I certainly won't be. But the history that will be written by those generations of the future will be how we countered planetary heating. Will the history be that we knew our Earth was burning and we didn't react, like Nero fiddling while Rome burned? Or will we be able to, will the history be that we left it very late, but we managed to counter the unsustainable trends and turn the ship around, so to speak, so that we left our future generations an inhabitable planet and passed on to them an ecologically stable Earth, which they deserve and are entitled to. We won't write it, as I say, but that choice is ours to make by the actions we take and those we don't take, and this conference can contribute to that through our thinking and through our networking and speaking with each other. So Extinction Rebellion is a very loosely organised organisation, but there's a whole raft of more formally organised, perhaps more centralised organisations in civil society. How do we define the huge diversity of NGOs and civil society groups? There are many different ways that we can categorise them, but two are by ideology, and secondly by the strategies that these groups use when pursuing their agendas. So if we look first at ideology, a distinction that's often used, especially in Germany, Die Grünen, is between light greens and dark greens. So light greens envisage a role for technology and technological solutions in addressing environmental problems. The right technologies can help us. They have a role to play. Low carbon technologies, low pollution technologies. Deep greens, however, counter that modern industrial technologies are often the causes of, rather than the solution to, environmental degradation. Light greens broadly accepting of the concept of economic growth. We need to green it, we need to render it more sustainable through policies such as environmental policy integration, for example. Deep greens, however, oh dear, I didn't mean to do that. We'll hear about him in a minute. Deep greens are more sceptical of the idea of economic growth. There are ecological limits to growth. And we've now surpassed these limits. The work of people like Johan Rockström et al. At the Stockholm Sustainability Institute argue that there's such a thing as planetary boundaries, and we're now moving beyond them. And values is another thing. Light greens sort of tend to emphasise the instrumental values of nature. Deep greens emphasise more the intrinsic values. Nature has value in and of itself, irrespective of what we of what we think about it. In case you're wondering what I'm doing, time is running out on the climate change, so I don't want time to run out on me. So I've got my alarm clock here to make sure that I hand over in time for when the real business of the conference starts very shortly, when we'll be handing over to Professor Tomás Ramos and his plenary speech. Now, this brings to mind a distinction drawn by the late, great Robert Cox, Canadian international political economist. He drew a distinction between problem-solving approaches that seek to solve environmental problems without questioning the foundational principles, values, and social relations of social order. Existing social structures, institutions, and ideologies are not really accepted. The status quo thus establishes the parameters within which we think and act. Okay, so a problem-solving approach to Cox is more one of system adaptation, of reform, tinkering at the edges. A critical approach, argued Cox, to environmental problems would not assume that an environmental problem can necessarily be solved within existing structures and systems. A critical approach challenges how we think. Okay, and it seeks innovative solutions, and it admits the possibility that contemporary social structures, systems and ideologies and distributions of power could themselves constitute part of the problematic. So these are two different ways in which we might like to think. They're not mutually exclusive, of course. It may well be the case that for some environmental problems, a problem-solving approach will suffice. But for others, we might need to think more radically and innovatively and outside the box. Okay, I'm just going to go past the strategy bit. I just want to, with respect to the state, these are two images. The image in the top left-hand corner is the corporate stars and stripes of the Canadian group Adbusters, which suggests that the United States federal government represents not the interests of citizens and individual states within the US, but in actual fact represent big business, corporate interests. The green stars and stripes in the bottom right came out of the deep ecology movement in the United States in the 1970s. So time's nearly up, so what I would like to do now, in case you're sort of thinking that you might be missing something, from the slides, which I'm going to have to regretfully skip. I'll be doing, unfortunately, we've had a late change of programme. One of our plenary speakers withdrew last week at very short notice, so I'll be doing tomorrow morning's plenary. But for now, I'd like to make way so that we can introduce this morning's plenary speech. And I'd like to ask Sarah Moreno Perez of the organising committee, and thanks for your help with that, to introduce our first plenary speaker, Professor Tomás Ramos. Sarah, please.
Well, good morning to all, and it's a really great pleasure to be here welcoming you to the first plenary session of this conference, and even greater pleasure to introduce Professor Tomás Ramos, that he is a major specialist and a professor of sustainability assessment and planning at the Nova University in Lisbon, Portugal. He is also an alumni from the University of Aveiro, where he did his master, so it's very good for us to welcome him here again. And he is ranked by the University of Stanford as the world top 2% scientist in sustainability assessment and in sustainability management and the public sector. So his research has been covering topics from sustainability assessment, as you will see today, and management, circular economy, impact assessment, public sector organization, stakeholder engagement, and transdisciplinary research for sustainability. So he has been invited as a lecturer in many countries, from China, India, Ecuador, United States, Angola, UK, Spain. So you are here to listening to him, not to me. So just to mention that he's a coordinator of many research projects funded internationally and nationally. And he's also the editor-in-chief, the executive editor of the Journal of Cleaner Production, and has editor roles in several leading scientific journals. So he's also a grant reviewer for many national and international institutions in many countries. And today, he will navigate us between new and old frontiers of sustainability assessment, what is still missing in indicator-based approach. So please, Professor Tomás Ramos, the floor is yours. And then we will follow with a debate, so please be prepared for the debate. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Well, it's a pleasure to be here as Professor Sarah Moreno Pires with these kind words that you used to present and to introduce my. In fact, we use too much words, too much nicer words. And in fact, I was saying that it's really a pleasure to be here because, well, I did my master's, as you said, here many years ago. So in fact, it's a pleasure to be back. This is part of my, let's say, history, academic history. And also because I went to this conference many years ago. I started, in Vietnam, 2006. I was there presenting something. I don't remember. Well, I remember. It was about sustainability something. So in fact, it's a pleasure to be back, in Portugal and in Aveiro. I really like Aveiro for many reasons. But anyway, so thanks very much, Sarah, for the kind introduction. Thanks very much for the organizing committee, in particular Professor Martin Diaz, and of course, you are, the reasons to be, for this invitation. So thanks very much again. And that's it for now. Let me focus on the main thing that I'm supposed to talk today. I will talk about sustainability assessment, as Sarah already stressed, and I will navigate around sustainability assessment when we use indicators. So one of my topics of research are very much related. So I'm biased with this thing here, as you will see. And I will talk about sustainability assessment, what we know about sustainability assessment, what we still don't know about sustainability assessment, and about the future. So I will mainly divide my presentation around this let's say, 3 parts So what we know, or at least what we think we know, and the things that we still don't know, and of course, what we should do. So let me start with the formal aim for the presentation for today. So the idea for this presentation is to debate with you around this topic about as David already stressed in the introduction. I mean, we really need to assess sustainability. So, and we need to understand what we should do and what we should not do. And in fact, we need to understand what are the problems when we are doing this. And of course, I mean, to address these problems, we should look forward, and we should identify the things that we should solve, and then we should mitigate or we should improve. And for that, and to address this, I will mainly center my presentation about the challenges and the opportunities for the future. So let's start with the things that we know, that you know, that I know. I mean, everybody knows this. Well, when we talk about sustainability assessment, in fact, it's not a, let's say, consensual concept. I mean, there are thousands of definitions around this concept, but so many definitions, interpretations, approaches, and so on and so on and so on. If we are related with economics, we will present a definition. If we are engineers, well, my background is engineering, well, just to let you know, but well, not anymore, but probably because I'm in this conference. And in this conference, we should integrate different things. This is not engineering, let's say, and at least in strict terms. So when we talk about sustainability assessment, well, despite all these definitions, we can say that we are trying to characterize something. We are trying to characterize the state, the sustainability state of an object. And to address this, we usually say, well, we need to cover environmental, social, and economic, and I will add on top of this the fourth and the fifth dimension for this assessment, to include governance and the institutional dimension, and of course, time, as you stressed. Time in a perspective that should be cross-generational time. I mean, that time that will impact in the future. And when we talk about sustainability assessment, we also know that we have mainly two approaches, before the event or after the event. We also know this. When we should evaluate with a prediction, what will happen if we do something, or when the thing is already there, what we should do, and what are the impacts of that. So we are mainly these two approaches when we do a sustainability assessment. When we have an industry that is operating, we'll evaluate the sustainability impacts. When we are predicting the impacts of a road, it's a prediction. So ex ante and ex post. And for this, we need all these stages. We need monitoring, we need evaluation, management, and reporting. That's clear. Well, this part is not so clear. I mean, sustainability assessment, it's not, as I said, technical only. It's not only a technical exercise. So we need much more than that. We need desires. We need non-material things. We need aspirations. So we need to integrate these values that are not engineering related. So, but please keep in mind this, because I will come back to this. And of course, there are different scales. And scale is a key word for when we are trying to assess, anything. And I really like this well, in fact, in the traditional sustainability assessment definitions, they don't use this division that I have, this disaggregation that I have here. But in circular economy, they love these three levels. And I really think that these three levels really represent the things that we are trying to address when we do a sustainability assessment. So the meso, and macro, that will cover for sure all these things that I have here presented, like households, communities, individuals, policies, plans, projects, so from the national to the very, very local level, including individuals and households. And usually we forget this. Well, we think about companies, we think about national level, policy level, countries, and maybe, and of course, regions and so on. But we often forget that we should include other scales of analysis. And this, there are many, many different methods to do and to support a sustainability assessment, but in fact, the majority of them, well, at least many of them, use indicators, like a thermometer. With one single variable, we do, 1 trillion decisions. I really like the example. I think it's an old example, I know that, you know that, but it's really fantastic. With when just one single variable, temperature, well, GDP, just a joke with GDP. Anyway, indicators are, in fact, one of the most used and central tools to support sustainability assessment. And in fact, some related with the indicators and the history, let me highlight just 3 or 4 things that are really important with the history of indicators. Well, they are not new. In fact, they started, well, let's say 40 to 50 years ago. Well, depends of the angle. If we say, but you should include social and economic indicators, so maybe 100 years. But if you mainly focus on environmental indicators, the boom that is related with this sustainability boom is around 40 to 50 years. So it's not a new thing, but it's not so old. That's one of the reasons that we have problems. It's not so old. It's not. It's still we are still developing. In fact, some of the most important references are from the late 70s. Not so new. And the boom, we also know this from the history. The boom started around the early 90s. So around, some decades ago. And in fact, one important fact related with this is that there are 4 main journals that are responsible for this boom. Journal of Environmental Management, Journal of Cleaner Production, the New Sustainability, and and the other one, let me think, and of course, the Ecological Indicators, one important journal. So 4 main journals that are responsible for this boom. This is quite interesting to analyze from academic perspective, this boom. And on top of this, the majority of the initiatives around sustainability assessment using indicators is related with the environmental dimension, mainly focus on that. One more fact, the Agenda 21 was, in my perspective, in fact, one of the main reasons for this boom. So the Agenda 21 from the United Nations conference in Rio de Janeiro in '92. And of course, and to finish this, let's say this historical highlights, the SDGs, so in 2015, well, they are a very important step for this change that we'll explore here. And they are, in fact, in part, let's say a challenge and an opportunity for the future. We'll explore again, in the next slides. Just to keep the concept clear in this presentation for this context here, when I talk about sustainability assessment using indicators, I'm mainly assuming this concept. Well, it's a sign that we use to explore, to evaluate something. And in fact, it's a special sign, like the thermometer. It's a value-added sign that we want to use to provide a value-added message in a simple way about a complex phenomenon. So we all know this. Sustainability assessment using indicators is a very popular tool. They are used to communicate to sustainable development to stakeholders. They are potentially useful to support decision-making, at different scales. And they are able to synthesize and to promote collaborative learning. We also know this, and part of this is true. Well, so it seems that this is a really good thing that we have here in hands. Sustainability assessment using indicators is a well-established tool. Even when we talk and when we have Malay, something written in Malay, we understand that sign. So that this is really a good example, again, of a good indicator. We understand what we have here. Dilarang Merokok, I don't speak Malay, but I understand this indicator. However, and let's start with the things that we probably should address and the things that you probably don't know. So, however, sustainability assessment, well, it in fact is still an underexplored field. And there are some risks around this, the use of indicators to support sustainability. There are several risks and limitations still not addressed, and so we have risks related with this indicator factory. We have more indicators than the ones that we need. In fact, we produce indicators for, I mean, to serve the individuals or the universities or the organizations that are using those initiatives. We don't have consensus around the methodologies, if they should be harmonized or standardized, if we should use, I mean, the definitions and terms are still blurred around these terms. And of course, the conceptual complexities and uncertainties related with the lack of a theory behind sustainability assessment and the indicators. So, in some extent, they are ineffective. They are not so good in changing the decision-making process. We don't have proofs of that. Nobody's, I mean, people, the users or the potential users are not using these tools. So why we are doing this? And in fact, one additional problem is the decline in the official data. I mean, if you look at US, your flag, and that gentleman that we have in the other side of the Atlantic talking about climate change and so on, so the decline about official data, the post-truth reality that we are facing today is really a big problem when we do an assessment. So objective facts, I mean, they are being used in a blurred way, and information is not so easily accessible as possible. And when we produce the indicators, in many cases, sometimes they are obsolete. I mean, because the text takes time to produce the information, the real data. And when they are communicated, we don't need them. So sustainability assessment approaches and in practice, they are in an initial phase of development. Let's say, as I said already, they are underexplored. And in fact, there are many topics, including emerging issues that are not solved, like climate change, circular economy, all these huge and big concepts. They are there, and we don't know how to assess them and to include them in the sustainability assessment packs. Just to give you an example related to these emerging issues, in fact, sustainability assessment literature has been, let's say, captivated by the circular economy concept. And nowadays, people are trying to say that, well, circular economy or circularity is a kind of synonym of sustainability, and in fact, we know that it's not. And I mean, all this, let's say, noise around circularity and sustainability and this huge mix is receiving increasing attention by academic and by industry and stakeholders and so on. And in fact, we don't know how to deal with this. I will be back again to this topic. So one of the main things that we conclude about the things that we know and about the problems that we have and that we still need to address is that sustainability indicators are very much related with this opacity or technicality, and this technicality of sustainability assessments using indicators move stakeholders away from using this tool. So users are not using this because they don't understand in many cases. So a central topic of all this pack of issues, of the good things and bad things that we know, is the low social understanding of using this tool to assess sustainability. And when we have this kind of issue, I mean, if you try to understand what we should do with this information, we'll say, and when we had the extra layer with fake news and fake data, I mean, we'll stop and say, I'm sorry, I don't know what to do with it. I will stop here, I will not use that. And we will ignore the information. So we will ignore the sign, we will ignore the indicators, we will ignore the assessments, we'll put in the document and fine, and I did it. I published one more paper related with sustainability, but we are not helping society with this kind of, let's say, approach. So it's time to rethink. I really believe that it's time to rethink after pandemics, after all. I mean, we changed a lot in the last 4 years, and the lens that we use today to understand this kind of issue, I think they are different, because at least we learned something. So it's time to rethink the current state of sustainability assessment using indicators, and to build visions that could reshape this reality that we are facing today. So we really need to focus on this tool. They are my colleagues from the UK, Simon Bell and Steve Morse. They stress that, I mean, there is an urgent, let's say, action to look, to stop, and to think what we should do with this, what we need from this kind of tool, in this context of, as I said, post-truth reality, where data is, where real data are facing some problems. So what we still don't know, finishing this part with the things that we know, there are many things that we still don't know. And in fact, they are very much related with these limitations and challenges in sustainability assessment and indicators. And some of them are related with questions that we should answer. Some of them are theoretical questions, and some are practical questions that we should address. At least we should stop to think, related to sustainability assessment and indicators. Let me start with the who. Who needs this? We don't know. Who needs indicators? I mean, scientists to publish reports and papers and well, yeah, maybe. Politicians? I'm not sure. Families? We are not using indicators at our places. So, come on. Who are assessing and using sustainability indicators? We don't know. We have no idea. There is Steve Morse published some years ago, 6 years ago, a work in Sustainable Development Journal about the impact of indicators. And he checked the newspapers in the UK, in the database. And I mean, that work is really interesting because it's related with the impact about the users and about the access to this information. And the conclusions are not fantastic, let's say, to say the minimum. Who is impacting sustainability indicators outcomes? I mean, the real impact of using this tool. Let's move to the what. What is the sustainable indicator theory? We don't have, I'm sorry, we don't have a theory. And probably part of this problem is related with that. We don't have a theory behind sustainability assessment and indicators. So these two things, sustainability assessment plus indicators, we don't have a theory to support the use of these tools and these processes. And that's a strong limitation in my perspective. Another what are the implications for end users of using easily friendly indicator approaches like ecological footprint? We don't know. We don't know, because they are nice. I mean, for schools, for universities, I mean, even for companies. But they have issues. Yes, they have. And we don't know the implications of using that. They are really easy to use. They are simplistic. And you can say, you can argue, oh, but that's the purpose of using indicators. They should be simple. They should communicate in, in this format. Yes, but we can discuss this later. What effective changes are sustainability indicators driving in our daily lives? Our places, as I already stressed, in our homes? No, we don't use that. So, again, one more question without an answer. And where? Where we should present the sustainability assessment-related information. Outdoors? Maybe, but we don't have that. Well, we have for air quality in some places, in some cities, well, in many cities, in fact. So, outdoors information, field placards? Maybe. Well, in Ecuador, they have something. In small cities, they put some information for local citizens. Very interesting example. But we still don't know. PDFs? I mean, nobody reads PDFs. Only academics and some other guys. Newspapers? Oh, they are struggling with selling more. I mean, that's another problem. So we don't know. And when we should start the process of co-construction indicators with people, with citizens and communities, if we want to do a co-construction process? Well, we have an idea. Let's start from the beginning. Yes, that's the easy part. But when we start exploring the details of the time, but when we should do that, for example, in our places, if you want to implement sustainability indicators, when we should that? When we buy the house? We use indicators to control the building and the sustainable construction of that building? No, we don't. And how? How reliable or uncertainty are perceived in the sustainability indicators? That's a tough one. And how sustainability indicators are being viewed and understood and used? We have some ideas, but we don't have proper answers. And our individual stakeholders' views, opinions, are shaping the self-assessment. So if we want to do self-assessment with these stakeholders, how we should do this? So several different questions that we don't know the answer. And I will share with you some of my views about the future and the things that we should address to mitigate or to try to answer some of these questions that we have here when we try to implement a sustainability assessment process using indicators. Some of the potential, let's say, angles of those futures I will present in the next slides. And they are very much related with the new frontiers, let's say, with the need to rethink sustainability assessment if we want to do and if we really need to do sustainability assessment of almost everything. Let me start with the one that you can say, oh, okay, I agree with that, interdisciplinarity. And of course, we all agree. We know that. This is absolutely fundamental. When we talk about sustainability, we always say that, you should address this interdisciplinarity. I will add two more. Multidisciplinarity and transdisciplinarity. Fine, that's great. We agree on that. But when we start identifying what represents interdisciplinarity, we will conclude that probably the majority of the approaches are not using this concept. So related with this is the disaggregation in scientific silos. So we don't want those silos. So we want an aggregated perspective, an integrated perspective when we do a sustainability assessment. So we want interdisciplinarity as a main key piece in this assessment process, since we know that we cannot do this by, using just a sum of fragmented parts of scientific disciplines, like ecological, social-cultural, economic, and institutional. If you check this assessment reports, you will see that they mainly divide in environmental or ecological indicators or components, social, economic, and so on. And in fact, I mean, that's okay, but that's not the best. So sustainability assessment should break down these silos for an integrated perspective and to avoid these barriers, let's say these silos, as I said already, for this integrated perspective. And to answer to this, probably we need this. I know that it takes time to develop a theory, but in fact, this is a main problem in my perspective, is the lack of a sustainability assessment indicators theory that will support this area as an autonomous scientific field, preventing this fragmentation and these angles divided in different scientific disciplines. Another angle that I think we should address for the future is time and generations. In fact, time, it's a very interesting word in the philosophical terms. And generations also, well, we can say, well, this generations is already stressed in all the sustainable development concepts and definitions. That's true, more or less. But we still don't know how to include this in sustainability assessment. If you check for indicators that reflect this intergenerational equity, integrating the time dimension, I think I don't know if you will find one indicator that reflects this. I'm afraid that we don't have. Maybe one or a couple of indicators that maybe reflect this time dimension, this intergeneration. This is a difficult word for me. Well, generation related. For the non-native, you know. So this is really important, and in my experience, this is really difficult to do. This is really a challenge to if you ask me during the discussion, present me an example of a good indicator that reflects that, I will struggle with presenting an example. This is difficult. Data. So one more angle, data and truth. Data is fundamental for everything, for the things that we are doing here. We can't work without data. We need raw data and analyze data and so on. And truth. That's the other part of the story. And nowadays, not only after the pandemics, we have this social media. This is a great thing. I really like to see the positive side of the coin and the positive angle. The social media, it's a good thing, but with many risks. And in fact, the crises of truth are very much related with this social media. And so data is no longer a problem of availability. Because in the past, we don't have data. They have so many time series, fantastic. That's important. But that's not the main issue, probably. It's not only a matter of data quality and availability. It's this problem of truth, of quality, of post-truth and fake news and fake data. And I do think that we can solve and we can mitigate this problem, facing the problem in a direct perspective, using collaborative learning and open data sharing. We can't ignore the social media. They are out there. So we should use them in a different perspective. We can use them in a different perspective, in this perspective of open data sharing and collaborative learning. So technology, we know that technology has some issues. But technology could be also very useful. As I said, I'm engineering background, that's my side of stressing technology. I'm joking, but well, technology, we can use technology to support and to drive this, probably. Like the mobiles that we have here, that you all have in your hands. Probably that tool, that technology, could be quite useful to support this collaborative process, including for crowdsourcing. It's a jargon here, but crowdsourcing is fundamental to support this kind of process for collaborative learning, for inclusiveness, and for that open data sharing. So technology, voluntary monitoring and assessment, plus crowdsourcing, I think we have three key aspects here to help solving this problem of data. Let me stress one more angle that we should address. Let me control my time. Academics talk too much. Thank you. Circularity or circular economy, well, what you prefer. I mean, we can't ignore this. It's out there. So, and it's a main trend nowadays. And as I said at the beginning, sustainability, including sustainability in assessment, has been captivated by this concept. It's quite popular. So we should face this topic and understand as a key topic, well, just to stress, circular economy is not, in my perspective, is not a synonym of sustainability, just to let you know, in my opinion. I mean, I would prefer, and I would stress that circularity is a tool or a strategy for sustainability transition. And assuming this, we must assess circularity as a part, as a dimension of sustainability. And for that, we need indicators. I'm sorry, again. To cover the circularity. And in fact, on top of this, I know that I have only 5 minutes, but on top of this, we really need indicators that are related not only with the technical aspects of circular economy, like recycling, repair. We need the social dimension of circular economy. That's absolutely fundamental, and that's the ignored side of the coin in circularity. So the 10 R's that we have, that I have here in this figure that you can't read because it's too small, but that's not the purpose. It's just to emphasize that we have 10 R's here in this left side of the figure, of the slide, and they include the social dimension that we should address if you want to assess circular economy. Non-traditional aspects. What I mean with this is that one of the angles for this future that we need to address for when we do a sustainability assessment is that we must realize that we should include other things that usually we don't include in sustainability assessments. If you check the environmental impact assessments, strategic environmental assessments, they mainly ignore this kind of topics that I have stressed here, like culture, sustainability ethics, aesthetics, justice, compassion, mutual help, moderation, solidarity, among others. The majority of the assessments, of sustainability assessments and sustainability assessment indicators, they do not include these topics. And I think this less tangible or the ignored pillar of sustainability must be a fundamental pillar of sustainability assessment. Is there and should be evaluated, but of course you can say, well, it's very difficult. I know that. But I mean, but we can't stop because it's difficult. The last part of these challenges for the future, society and the impact, probably the most important part of these challenges. So if we want to use, and if you want to assess sustainability, we should make an impact in the society. Using community indicators, they are the two dimensions, fundamental dimensions for this society impact when you do a sustainability assessment. Community that could develop individual set of indicators and will have a central role in multi-stakeholder collaborative networks. And individuals. Individuals, they are the key piece, I would say, for this change. We need individuals with a central role, a central player in this field. Aiming not only, to receive information in the public participation, but doing things, developing indicators, evaluating, analyzing. So not only, individuals are not there to receive information during a public participation audience. They are there to do things, to write things, to analyze things. So individuals, they are fundamental. I really like this picture here, this photo here. It's really strong. It's from the UN. Each individual should play a pivotal role in this process. So using and assessing, applying indicators, applying all this knowledge and lay knowledge for following on using a stakeholder-driven approach. And of course, in the context of collaborative networks, all individuals and communities should be, let's say, aggregated in this kind of network that will build upon the information that they collect. So final remarks to finish the less than 5 minutes. So final remarks and to emphasize just some topics that I think they are part of the fundamental issues that I decided to share with you in this morning. So the current and the new version of the SDGs, I mean, I think they are a huge opportunity. In particular, the new ones that they are starting to being developed at UN level. They are a major opportunity to rethink and to solve and to help and to answer to these issues that I stressed during the presentation today. Because they will give room for research, for innovation, and social innovation, not only innovation in technological terms, and for the change that we need. Another aspect that I stressed during the presentation is the official truths and the data and the problems with data. I mean, we should be able and should be ready to integrate and weight non-official inputs, using the social media, using other technology systems that can help with that. We can't ignore the technology that is out there, as I already stressed. I mean, to include society values, emotions, aspirations, and all let's say, the non-material values that I stressed as a fundamental part of sustainability assessment. And to respond to this, transdisciplinary community-based approaches are absolutely fundamental. They should be the major option to conduct this change. And I'm finishing. Sustainability assessments and indicators cannot be a mere technical exercise. It's another thing. And in fact, we need to be humble enough to understand that and to reach the next frontier. And we need to, I mean, to be aware of this. I mean, to say, well, okay, I know that, and I'm prepared for the next stage, to be humble enough, as I said, to start changing. So we need a paradigm shift, I would say, towards pluralism and context dependency. And with a major keyword, societal impact and societal engagement. And for that societal impact, I choose and I selected some, let's say, keywords. Of course, there are many others, but that I would like to finish with these keywords. Collaborative learning, social innovation, openness, technology, interdisciplinarity, and non-material values. They are part of this path that we should probably address in the next, let's say, phases of our change. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here with you today, so I'm open to a discussion.
Yes, okay. We have already some questions, so thank you very much.